Hi, everyone. You're listening to the Your Number One Fan podcast, and I'm your host, Kim. I want you to think of me as your number one fan, and this podcast to be the most encouraging and inspiring thing you listen to every week. We're talking about mental health, mindset, not caring what people think, pivoting in life, being a mom, relationships, and much more. I'm so happy you're here. Now let's get into it. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Your Number One Fan podcast. Today I have Kelly. She is such a sweet girl. I've known her for quite a while, and she is a new mom. She has a beautiful son, 5 months old. I think he just turned 5 months, right? Or 6?
5 months, yeah.
Yeah, 5 months. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And today, I think we're going to talk about the pre-pregnancy, pregnancy, and like into the labor, things that you might have questions about, things that we didn't expect, just kind of an open conversation about all of that stuff. I know that there's a lot of talk about the negatives of all of those things, like negatives of being pregnant, or you see the opposite. You see like these girls with the cute little bump and don't look like they stopped doing anything when they were pregnant. Like everything seems to have gone perfectly. So I just like being honest. If it was great for you, great. If it wasn't, then we could talk about that. So
Yeah.
whatever, comes up in this conversation, and I hope that you get something out of it for everybody listening. So Kelly, do you want to tell me just a little bit about you and how you decided that you wanted to move forward having a child?
Yeah. So my husband and I, we've known each other for 10 years. And we got married in 2021, and we knew that shortly after that, we both wanted a family, and we're hoping to even just after Easton expanding our family after that as well, because it's just been such a great experience. So
Awesome. Yeah. And you were married in, was that 2 or 3 years ago?
yeah, and we got married in 2021. Our wedding got
2021. Yeah.
Yeah, our wedding got
Oh,
postponed due to COVID, so we kind of had to push things back a bit.
hmm
But
yeah. And you kind of decided that you guys were on the same page. Did you have to have that like conversation after you were married? Were you like, okay, is it time? Or did you have that kind of timeline in mind?
yeah, I think we always kind of had that timeline in
Hmm
mind. Um, we had that conversation, back in 2018, like when we got engaged, we both knew we wanted a
Yeah.
family. So it was never a question.
Anybody that's in a relationship probably has that conversation, but then you're actually married and you're like, okay, is it time? Like, should we enjoy this time married or should we just have a kid? Whatever. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what I was talking about earlier with somebody is you just have to not feel ready sometimes. You just have to like accept that you don't really know what you're getting yourself into, you
Absolutely.
know?
Absolutely. And I feel like no one, like, you could mentally be ready and be like, I think we're at the time in our life where this is like, a good choice for us. Like, you could, be prepared in every aspect of your life that you can
hmm
be. And then, it happens. And then it's just like, you really have no
hmm
idea like what you're in for. It truly
Yeah.
changes your life.
Yeah. You think you don't know what you don't know. Like, even though
Right.
you're exposed to so much on social media these days, like, I don't know how people like mentally did it back before you could see, like, you could Google everything, which has its ups and downs. But I felt like I needed all the information. And I guess before all of that, they didn't know the difference. But I can't imagine not having all of this information at my fingertips and just having these people to look at and be like, okay, if they can do it, I can do it.
Right. Yeah. And that's the
Yeah.
thing too, is it's like, if that person can do it, I can do it. And like, I guess it is sort of a good and bad thing, like having all of that information at your fingertips, because sometimes
hmm
it's good to have that reassurance, but also can be detrimental too. Put
Yeah.
that.
Oh, for sure. How did conceiving go for you? How were you going about that, I guess? Did you have a
Yeah,
plan?
for like, and that's the thing too, is like, we knew it was something that we wanted, so we thought about trying, before our wedding, but we didn't
hmm
know how easy of a process it was going to be.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we're like, we'll wait to try after the wedding. So we started in like late summer of 21, and it took us a while.
hmm
It was not like an easy process, and we ended
hmm
up kind of like having to like go through testing. I think like February rolled around. It had been several months of trying, and just like
hmm
disappointment every month.
hmm
And it's tough because it's like you can't expect it to be an easy journey, but you hope it's going to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so, February rolls around, and we both had decided to kind of like do separate testing to make sure that, like, we were able to do this. And so I had gone for like an ultrasound, and they're like, things are great with you, like, no concerns there. My husband had gone through testing, and, we went for an appointment, like, for the results, and they were like, why are you even here?
That's
And
great news.
yeah, they're like, your numbers are
Yeah.
great. Like, you guys have nothing to worry about, which was like great news, but also at the same time, we left the appointment and we were like happy, but at the same time, we were like, okay, if things are so great,
Mhm.
what's wrong? Like, why aren't we able to
Right.
get, so that was just, a little disappointing. So we're like, all right, we're just going to have to, keep trying, keep
Mhm.
at it. And
Yeah.
I'd stopped drinking, like just socially, even just
Mhm.
because you try and do
Yeah.
everything to like limit, or like, make your chances better of trying to do that. So
Right.
I was, changing like what I ate and things like that.
Mhm.
I think I was just a little stressed too with things like with my job at the time. I had, gotten a new job and I had to take exams and things like that. So I was a little
Mhm.
overwhelmed. And I had
Yeah.
gone on a trip, April, I had gone on a trip with one of my girlfriends, and she was like, enjoy yourself this trip, like relax, have a good time. And then a couple weeks later on Mother's Day is when I found out I was pregnant. So
Aw.
yeah, honestly, I think that's it. I think just like like being relaxed and, trying to limit stress in your life.
Yeah, I hate that because it's, like, really hard to do, but it really is such a trigger for so many things, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's one of
And then
those
you
things
get
that
stressed that you're stressed.
right, and it's
Yeah.
so much easier said than done because you can't control those outside factors that cause you to be stressed. You
Mhm.
just have to have, like, a positive mindset, I think, and, just
Mhm.
kind of, like, breathe through it all and just, like, remind yourself to try and stay relaxed. Because I think at the end of the day, that's, like, what ended up doing it.
Mhm. Did you feel, like, a strain at all with your marriage?
Yeah, I think both of us kind of just, like, ended up, like, leaning on each other because we were both a little defeated. I wouldn't say it, like, caused a strain, but we were both just kind of, like, every month it was just a little upsetting, but we were, like, trying to maintain that positive attitude and be like, "We'll get there
Right.
eventually. When it happens, it happens." And we just kinda had
Mhm.
to, like, let it go, and we knew that
Right.
when the time was there, it would come.
Yeah. I do believe in everything happening at the right time.
Yeah.
So I do try and, like, think that way, but at the same time, you're like, when you're in it, it's so hard to just let it go. Let the how just go, you know? You're like, "But I want to do this. I wanna have some control." And also, like, not knowing when your whole life is gonna change. It just feels like this thing hanging over you. You're like, "Okay, one day I'm gonna be pregnant, and then that's
Right.
gonna be my life for 9 months." And nobody gives you any type of direction, I feel like, as far as, like, first of all, getting pregnant. Maybe because it's, like, the way that you get pregnant, like, people just don't talk about that openly.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
like, I just feel like there's not a lot of information out there about that. So, personally, my son wasn't an accident, but he was a surprise, as I like to say.
Yeah.
So I fortunately didn't have like the type of struggle that we're talking about here. And, but I do have very close friends who did. And I just can't sympathize enough. It's just so like the word that you said, defeating. It just I wish I could help and I wish that I like
Yeah.
had anything to offer, but it's like what do you even, say to somebody? And I feel like maybe it might you might turn inward thinking that something's wrong with you or something is off with you, and like you said, you're trying to do all of these things, stop drinking socially, eat different things and stuff. So just being a mom and all of that responsibility, everything that comes with a mom starts so early, starts before you're even pregnant. You have to like,
Right.
change your whole mindset, change your whole thing. So were you worried about like, okay, my life's going to change? Was that part of your decision making when you wanted to start having a kid, or was that something you always knew you wanted and you're like, this is just part of me anyways?
Yeah, I would say I would go with the second choice there. I mean, it changes your life, and then I think once like the baby comes, like you're like, wow, you really have no idea how much it changes your life.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's going to be, adjustments, and I think, anybody who becomes pregnant for the first time like understands that their life will change you just don't understand like the magnitude of it, I think, until they're with you and like you bring
Right.
them into this world. So it's just,
Yeah, so we had a little break there. My volume and whatever wasn't working. So we're back. What I was saying is how much it changes your life and how you can't even, forecast that. It's like you don't know. That's what I was saying. You don't know what it entails because you don't think about all of the basic things. Like you don't think about yourself breathing. You don't think about yourself being hungry. You don't think about yourself being tired. It's just all second nature. You don't think about it. They're habits. So then when you have a baby, you're like thinking about every little thing and you think you're prepared for that. You're like, of course I need to worry about XYZ. But then when you're actually doing it, you're like, okay, I have like 10 balls in the air. Like they need to eat this much. They can't eat this much. Like they have to sleep, but
yeah,
are they eating too much? Are they not So
right.
you really don't know until you're doing it. And as much as this sounds like so daunting, I promise, like I love everything about being a mom. And I hate when people like scare other people, but it just is a lot. And the whole thing back to like what I was asking about your kind of identity and just starting to be a mom before you're a mom. I
Yeah.
think that it's just you're thrown into it. I mean, and with pregnancy too. Like, how was your pregnancy? Did you have a quote unquote easy pregnancy or?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and like I said, I know everybody's journey is different.
Mhm.
Some people go through that. I know, I think in a previous episode, you had said that you had had preeclampsia when you were pregnant.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but I mean, my pregnancy was, pretty much like, smooth sailing. Obviously had the first trimester nausea and things like that, and just like the back pain and hip pain towards the end where like sleeping becomes a bit difficult. But overall, like my pregnancy was fine. I think for me, once you find out you're pregnant, you worry so much about so many things.
Yeah.
Because at that point, like you did everything that you could to get there, but everything's out of
Mhm.
your control.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like
Yeah.
worrying about like what you eat and like, how you move
Mhm.
and things like that. So I was just like very conscientious all the time about
Mhm.
like what I was doing, what I was eating,
Yeah.
and you think about all that stuff, and then you kind of roll around to like the anatomy scan when you're like 18, 20 weeks, which is like a super big one because they're doing imaging and blood work to find out if your baby's healthy. And
Mhm.
I remember going to that appointment and just like breaking down in tears because I was like, I don't know, like, you
Yeah.
just want a healthy baby no matter what.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Um, so
Yeah.
it's just kind of hard to, you know,
Yeah.
I guess like navigate that, whether things go
Mhm.
good or bad, but you just hope.
Pregnancy is tough. I mean, even though you're saying it was like smooth sailing, your whole body changes. Your whole your mental health is like so important during that time. So even if you had like an easy pregnancy, it's still so hard. Like
It is,
so
yeah.
hard to just adapt, and it's mind blowing. To this day, I'm like, how did my body that I'm in right now do that? Like grow, create a life, give birth to that life? Like
Yeah.
what?
I know it's
Yeah,
so hard to wrap your head around like the whole time you're like, I cannot believe that, you know, this is like happening to me and that like
mhm,
my body knows what to do on its own to like create this little
exactly.
human.
Yeah, yeah. Did you have a good like support system around you when you were pregnant?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, my parents, were absolutely over the moon. My in-laws were over the moon, and just like all my coworkers, my friends, my family, everybody was just so supportive
That's
and
great.
yeah, great through the whole thing, start to finish. So it was really nice being able to like, talk to, like my friends who've already gone through this, or like,
Right.
to come to answer any questions I had, or like, find out if something was normal. So it definitely helps having such a good support system.
I'm always the person that doesn't like, I mean, I like all the information. I like to find out everything. And I do like asking for advice, but I also don't like not knowing things, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
I don't like when I feel like other people are teaching me. I don't know. It's kind of stupid, but especially like the older generations, I'm like, okay, like whatever, but it's good to get
Yeah,
all the information.
yeah, absolutely. I totally get that. I definitely think I was like the same way. Like, there's always going to be people, like telling you like what to do or like
Mhm.
suggesting you do things a certain way. And, sometimes